Hello, I'm Chuck Phillip, and welcome to another edition of Southern Stories. This is going to be part 2 that I started on the American Legion in Fairhope. And I've said there was probably going to be about 2 to 3 episodes of this, and it looks like that's what it's going to be. So if you haven't seen the first one, I recommend that you go and check it out. I'm standing across the road from the American Legion where Gambino's restaurant is. And of course you can see the tarp on the roof, and this is where it got damaged during Hurricane Sally. But this building was built in 1912 and probably got completed around 1913. And it was built using heart pine, and more than likely they cut the trees down close to this to build it. That was quite common back then. They just set up little portable sawmills wherever they were building the structure. And so you think back to 1912, this was the year that the Titanic sank. Taft was the president. But also down at the pier, that was also built around this same time period. It even kind of looks the same as this. In fact, I remember the old casino being there back in the 60s. But I've always been amazed by the resilience of this old lumber, which is being heart pine. In fact, I even got a playlist on my channel called Abandoned Homes of Alabama, and I started inspecting these out of curiosity because, how do these buildings fare with simply no maintenance whatsoever for decades? And a lot of it has to do with this old growth heart pine lumber. And so this is going to be a very informative video for you in 2 different respects. I'm going to go over the history of it, but it's probably going to save you a lot of money too in the end, because a lot of this I'm about to tell you is from my personal experience of being a home and commercial building inspector. So anyway, let's move right on along. So what we're looking at is the outside of this. I'm standing at the front of it now, and you can see the windows up there at the top, and a lot of this is original. Like the windows, even the glass is original, and most of the windows. And they would had these high windows off the ground because they didn't have air conditioning back then, and so a lot of the living quarters were at the top floor, so they could open up all these windows and it'd be high enough off the ground for where mosquitoes hopefully wouldn't come in. So this is a well-built structure, and it's also on a crawl space too, and this is where it's going to get interesting. I've inspected hundreds of crawl spaces. I'm certified in these as well, but this is the most vulnerable area of your home or building if you have one like this. Now you can see this is the proposed plan when it gets remodeled out, but I also noticed in this photograph that it has a lot of bushes around the side of it, and I don't recommend that be done because it's going to block the airflow coming up underneath this thing. In fact, it should be opened up all the way around. The ones I have inspected that fared the best were ones that were open all the way around it where it could get lots of ventilation. And the only other option to this is to be encapsulated by a qualified encapsulation company. So anyway, you can look. I took a photograph up under the crawl space here. You could see, it looks like it's some pretty decent shape. Of course, I wasn't able to see all of it, but I could also see a board coming down and making ground contact, and more than likely that is treated lumber. But depending on when that was treated, that can make a difference, because I inspected this one house. It was in Silver Hill where they did some foundation work, and they used a treated lumber to support it, but the termites had made tunnels over the treated lumber. They didn't get in it, but they made tunnels over it. And so I don't think they would do that with the old treatment CCA. And so I've got some other videos on this channel that are really going to help you out on termites, because these things get worse every year, not better. And so I did notice when I was in this building that there were some areas where termites had gotten into it, but this is where it gets back fascinating again with these abandoned homes. I had found that, termites were in most of these, but when they got into the pine sap, they had to bail out of it. And so this old growth lumber is really resilient. It's not proof, but it's really resilient to pest and also for mold and fungus. But there again, everything has a breaking point and eventually this will rot down if it's not addressed and addressed properly. And that's why it's really important that you take the time to ferret out which contractor is the best one to do this, because there's a lot of science into this, and a lot of builders know how to put this stuff together, but there's not very many of them that understand the science of it. So just know that. And also too, you could have termites in your house and not know it either. In fact, you may even have a pest control company that comes out and inspects it. But all that means is they just didn't find anywhere they looked. So just know that. I'm telling you, you need to turn your radar on for these termites and watch these episodes I have on this channel about it. And I know I'm getting a little bit winded here, and that's why this is going to be several different episodes, because you need to know these things. And so it's going to be a mixture of my knowledge of being an inspector and also the history of this building. So we'll march right on along with this. So, this was from what I understand, a women's business club. And then it was, I think, sold to a doctor, became a doctor's residence. And then after that, the doctor had either sold it or donated it to the American Legion. And the one thing that I did notice is that it had knob and tube wiring in there, and I've run into that before as a home inspector. In fact, I lived in a house that had it at one time. It's not uncommon to have this still in use in some places. I wouldn't be surprised if there's still houses in Fairhope and in Mobile that are being run by knob and tube wiring. I'm pretty sure when this building was built that it did not have electricity. I don't think that electricity got to these rural areas and probably till the 1920s or 30s. I know Mobile probably had it in some areas in the late 1800s, and then in 1907, the Mobile Press Register got power. In fact, a lot of people came there to see the first light bulb ever lit by electricity, so that was quite a spectacle for them back then. All right, guys, as promised, I told you I was going to keep these short, and I'm going to do it. This is going to conclude episode 2. I hope you've enjoyed this one, and I also hope you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And especially share these videos, because what happens when you do, other people reach out to me so I can add to the next episode. And so hopefully I'll have that out before we play there on the 23rd of this month. But if not, I hope to see you down at the American Legion. This is the best way you can support these guys and help them get their building fund up. But if you've got the extra money to donate to it, I'd appreciate if you could do that as well, because this is really the best live music venue we have here. And it is open to the public, and it's also run by the veterans too. So I hope that you can make it to our shows, and also the others that come down here. And like I say, if you hit that notification bell on this channel, it'll let you know when this next episode comes out. And I greatly appreciate each and every one of you being a part of this. Take care, guys.